Before World War II, globalization was guarded and managed by the League of Nations, not to be confused with the Justice League with Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. The purpose of this organization was to maintain world peace. Apparently they didn't succeed. After World War II, a number of organizations were established to enforce new guidelines for the globalized world. Essentially, we called in the Guardians of Globalization, Volume 2. These guardians are called multilateral organizations because they are funded and managed by representatives from multiple governments and organizations. The most influential guardians today are the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the G20, and the World Economic Forum. The United Nations, or the UN, as many people refer to it, was born out of rough beginnings, much like Star-Lord Peter Quill. At the end of World War II in 1945, the UN was established to help countries resolve their differences through diplomacy, its goal being to maintain and promote global peace. When a country becomes a member of the UN, it agrees to the obligations of the UN Charter, an international treaty that guides dialogue and discussion for resolving issues that affect multiple countries. The UN comprises over 190 member countries and consists of 5 different sister organizations or organs: the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the Secretariat, and the International Court of Justice. While the Guardians of the Galaxy came from different places across 9 realms, 4 of the Guardians of Globalization are located in the main UN headquarters in New York City, with the International Court of Justice located in The Hague in Netherlands. The main body and meets annually to discuss issues and vote on resolutions. Each member country has 1 vote. Resolutions agreed upon by the General Assembly are not binding, but a member country's reputation can be marred if it goes against a UN resolution. Issues on which the General Assembly might make recommendations include peace and security, human rights, economic development, and humanitarian assistance in general. The UN's central mandate, however, is to increase the standard of living and reinforce human rights throughout the world. 2 issues central to successful globalization. You go, Star-Lord. The World Trade Organization, or for less of a mouthful, the WTO, much like Gamora with her vast knowledge of peoples and places and her added strength to enforce, was set up to ensure that international trade runs freely and fairly and that member nations impose minimal restrictions on each other. To be accepted as a member of the WTO, a country must first ratify the WTO regulations in its own parliament or governing body. The WTO then monitors and coordinates trade across member countries, making sure they obey these regulations. For example, if the United States decides to restrict the number of tomatoes Mexico sells into the country, Mexico can file a complaint alleging that the United States has breached one of the agreed-upon trade rules. If the ensuing investigation by the WTO shows that the United States indeed violated the rules, it will require the U.S. to pay for the damage caused or risk losing its status as a member. Most major countries aspiring to trade outside their borders belong to the WTO. This gives the WTO significant influence in promoting free trade across countries. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, and the World Bank, an inseparable pair much like Rocket and Groot, were both created by representatives of the 44 nations who met at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in 1944, shortly before the end of World War II. The IMF was established to rescue countries from financial crisis like the one that brought Hitler to power in Germany and paved the way for World War II in the first place. The World Bank was formed with similar intentions, but you could say it underwent a rebirth and now focuses more on preventing war by promoting economic development in poor countries. The World Bank provides heavily subsidized loans to poor governments in an effort to help them build infrastructure, develop the private sector in banking and agriculture, and create effective public utilities. The G20, or Group of 20, was established in 1999 and consists of finance ministers and central bank governors from the 19 largest economies in the world, plus representatives of the European Union and the European Central Bank. The G20 is probably a lot like Drax, clearly a massive force to be reckoned with. Finally, the World Economic Forum, also called the WEF, was not set up by different governments. She's probably the nebula of the Guardians, unsure of her allegiance at first, but later interested in joining the rest of the Guardians. Instead of being funded by countries, this organization is funded by over 1,000 member companies, typically multinational corporations with over $5 billion in revenue. Each year, the World Economic Forum members gather in the Swiss mountain resort of Davos. They address issues related to gender equality, geopolitics, the future of the internet, global talent gaps, global financial systems, and other business-related topics. So far, these Guardians of Globalization, Volume 2, have done a pretty good job of helping us avoid another world war and have helped us stabilize the world economy. Let's hope they can continue to adapt to the new changes of globalization. Thanks for watching that video. For more information on international business, go to internationalhub.org.